didn't know I'd book anything.
Yes.
All right. Okay. All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Provost Terry Flott. I'm the Provost of UMass Chan. Let me be the first to congratulate you, the award recipients, and all the graduates of the class of 2022 of the Morningside Graduate School for Biomedical Sciences. And I want to welcome you all to this award ceremony. So I'm going to say a few words now, and at the end I'll be extremely brief just to say goodbye and send you to just for those of you who decide to leave early, the reception is, no, I'm just kidding. The reception is going to be upstairs outside the cube. So if you're in the balcony, you just have to walk outside. So, but I'm just going to give you guys a few of my thoughts this afternoon. Most years at this ceremony, I have spoken to the graduate school about science in society, or more recently about science and COVID. But this year, I just wanted to reflect a little on my personal experiences, as I am now in my 30th year of continuous NIH funding as a laboratory physician scientist in gene therapy. So I did not go to graduate school. But I did have a four-year immersion experience when I was the only MD in my postdoc lab, and in fact on the whole floor of the building at NIH where I was. It was fall of 1988. I walked into the office of my research mentor, Dr. Barry Carter, who was a reformed New Zealand rugby player turned virologist, who at the time was at the leading edge of turning adeno-associated virus from a laboratory curiosity, a virus for which there's no known disease, as they used to kid. Anyway, to turn it from a laboratory curiosity into a powerful gene therapy vector. And I have to say that going into the lab for me was a very humbling experience. The extremely delayed gratification of laboratory science, quite honestly, tested my patience, resilience, commitment to my career decisions. But somehow I made it through, and as I've mentioned, I've had my own lab since 1992 and independent NIH funding since 1993. But I will also confide that over those years, I've shared the experience of many, if not most scientists, of not always seeing where the experiments that we were doing on any one given day might lead, and in fact, whether they would ever lead to anything of any real value. But I want to share with you today a unique experience that I've been very privileged to have here. I won't say near the end of my career, I'll just say kind of a ways into my career. Over the last 5 years, as I was recruited to be the clinical trialist partner for Miguel Estevez, Heather Gray Edwards, Bob Brown, and Doug Martin from Auburn as they were kind of bringing their basic science gene therapy efforts directed to cures for Tay-Sachs and Sandhoff disease to the clinic. And I've had the extraordinary privilege, as we brought those therapies to the clinic here at UMass Chan, to work with these young patients, these infants and children and their parents, and shepherding them through the administration of Miguel's vectors to their brains and spinal cords. And this is a process that is somewhat long and arduous, and it involves strong immune suppressive drugs and neurosurgeries and ICU stays. But both for those who've shown benefits and those who are too far advanced to see much benefit, I can attest to you that the opportunity to participate in these trials has provided them with hope. And I'm sharing this example certainly not to praise myself, who have been just the clinical grunt on this particular team, or even our team, but to tell you that over those 20 years that preceded that Miguel and his colleagues toiled away in the lab with plasmids and cell lines and mice that wouldn't breed and blots that didn't transfer and all those things, that in the end, it was all worth it. It wasn't predictable. It wasn't a straight line, but all of their efforts were worth it. And so, as you all know, this is the nature of science. It's not predictable. It's not linear, but it can be transformative. It matters. So whether the impact is in disease, in health, in bioresilience, in fundamental discovery, science is our future, and in many ways, you, the graduates of the Morningside School, are our graduates. So it's now on that note that we celebrate your achievements, your accomplishments in this awards ceremony. I'm going to have the privilege in a moment to introduce your dean, but first let me congratulate your dean, Mary Ellen Lane, for now being the Donna and Robert Manning Endowed Chair, as well as the dean of the Morningside Graduate School. And I'll just say, Dean Lane has set a new standard for graduate education in our university, always putting students first and always asking all of us to think and work purposefully together toward the goal of fulfilling the full potential of each of your bright futures. So please join me now in welcoming Dean Lane to the podium.
Thank you, Provost Flott, for those inspiring words and kind remarks. Welcome, graduates, honorees, friends, family. It's nice to have you here. It's nice to be in person. In a minute, Chancellor Collins is going to come up and give the Chancellor's Award. And I just want to remind everyone that each year we have a process where the Chancellor asks for a slate of graduating students whose thesis, research, and leadership qualities have been judged by the faculty to be outstanding. The Chancellor then reviews the slate and selects one student to receive this award. So I'm delighted to invite Chancellor Collins to the podium to announce the award.
Oh, good afternoon, everyone. And it's always a wonderful, commencement week is always a wonderful time to celebrate the achievements and the wonderful work done by each one of our graduates. It's always a very special week for me because I have a chance to sort of think about the year and then prepare a communication that I'll deliver on Sunday. So I don't actually, while I'm invited to speak at each one of these ceremonies, I'm giving my talk on Sunday, not now. But I will tell you that I'll tell you what I'm going to talk about on Sunday. It's very simple. We need you. And if you want to hear the rest of the story, you'll have to be there on Sunday. But at a time like now, in a world like ours, in a place like this, clearly we need you. And I hope to make that case a little more flourishly on Sunday. It's now my distinct pleasure to present the 2022 Morningside Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences Chancellor's Award. This is the highest award bestowed upon a member of the graduating class. And it's a privilege this year to present the Chancellor's Award to Daniel Hidalgo. So Daniel has made his mark as a student and a scientist, but he's also enriched our academic community well beyond that. He's a champion of diversity and cultural understanding, former president and founding member of UMass Chan's chapter of the Society for Advancement of Chicano Hispanics and Native Americans in Science. In 2019, that group worked with the T.H. Chan School of Medicine to develop a student-led optional elective, medical Spanish, which integrated the knowledge of Spanish-speaking faculty into a hands-on course where medical students practice speaking Spanish with Morningside students acting as standardized patients. Daniel was not only the creator of the course, but served as an instructor. As a PhD candidate, Daniel elucidated novel functions of the erythropoietin receptor, EPOR, in his thesis research. This work, published in Nature Communications last year, is a step toward alleviating bone marrow failure and malignant transformation. Daniel, I think it's fair to say that you're a terrific ambassador for UMass Chan, and we are most proud to call you one of our own. Congratulations on your selection as the 2022 Morningside Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences Chancellor's Award recipient.
Congratulations, Daniel. So I will proceed with additional awards. And what I'd like to ask of the awardees is when your name is called, stand and be recognized. For time and also, other purposes, what I will do is at the end of the ceremony, you can come forward, receive your framed certificate, have a picture, masked or unmasked as you prefer. So stand when your name is called. So the next award is the Dean's Award for Outstanding Thesis Research. And this award is for students who are graduating this year, whose research findings and the judgment of the faculty profoundly impact their field. This year, as in all years, we've received several outstanding nominations, from which we have chosen 2 recipients. Now, I first want to acknowledge all who have been nominated. And please feel free to stand. Okay. Amenitala Albarki, Hyunhee Cho, Ki Kong, Sage Foley, Krishna Ganta, Pakta Kearney, Nianchen Lee, and Jordan Smith. And as you can imagine, the Awards and Recognition Committee had their work cut out for them. But I'd like to recognize Krishna Ganta and Jordan Smith as the 2022 recipients of the Dean's Award for Outstanding Thesis Research. Congratulations. Krishna's work has led to stunning advances, and that's a direct quote, in precision genome editing, in which he described in 3 first author papers. I also heard stories about people hugging you at meetings because they are so grateful for the way that the technology that you've developed pushes the field forward. Krishna explored a really vexing question, why long DNA donor molecules exhibit reduced activity as repair templates in CRISPR editing. And so he took a very systematic and high volume approach to troubleshooting strategies that increased efficiencies of repair. And he led the project and initiated collaborations with colleagues in the RNA Therapeutics Institute to further explore chemical modifications that improved the frequency of precision editing in the germlines of 3 animal model systems and cultured human cells. These advances are appreciated by the community and have changed the way that the entire worm community carries out genome engineering. His advisor, Craig Mello, tells us that Krishna has great hands, sharp insights, an infectiously passionate and inquisitive nature, and importantly, a selfless enthusiasm for sharing his work and for establishing meaningful collaborations. Congratulations. Jordan Smith Jordan Smith generated the first conditional model of hepatoblastoma. I did practice this. The most common pediatric liver cancer, where she explored the mechanisms of induced tumor regression. Further, using 2 custom-designed lineage tracing experiments and a multi-omics approach, so she checked all the boxes, Jordan identified an oncogene whose inhibition could functionally differentiate tumor cells to hepatocyte-like cells. Jordan published this work and has presented it at national meetings. She defended her thesis within 2.5 years and published 2 co-first author papers and 1 solo high-impact paper. Jordan secured an F30 grant and also has contributions to many other publications. Fun fact, Jordan was the first GSBS student in history to deliver her dissertation defense exam by Zoom. And she's been a leader in the MD-PhD community. Krishna, Jordan, congratulations. And to all the nominees for this outstanding research that you've done, congrats to you. I would like to recognize that Chancellor's awardee, Dr. Daniel Hidalgo, has been selected by many of you to be the class speaker for Sunday. I will save my remarks for then. We really look forward to hearing what you have to tell us, Daniel. Now, as many of you know, we take this time to honor the graduates, but we are also honoring other community members who have won awards for their research, for their community service, and for their mentoring. So the Graduate Student Body Committee, which runs the student government, has established the Gsbc Career Development Award that helps students take advantage of a broad range of scientific and career development opportunities. Awards are made in the fall and spring, and this year's awardees, whom I ask to stand if they are here, are Emily Agnello and Silviana Lee. Several years ago, we received a generous gift from the Riccio family to be applied toward travel award for deserving students to present their work at national meetings. Applications are reviewed by the Awards and Recognition Committee, and recommendations are made to the dean. This year's awardees, whom I ask to stand and be recognized, are Jillian Gallagher, Kevin Gao, Havisha Hanwad, Shuki Lee, Kathleen Morrill, and Shivani Nanda. I bet it was nice to get back to going to meetings again. This year I also want to recognize that members of our graduating MD-PhD class who have received the Alpha Omega Alpha Award conferred by the School of Medicine. This year's awardees, whom I ask to stand and be recognized, are Alec Raman and Jordan Smith. The Dean's Award for Outstanding Mid-Thesis Research is given to students who are engaged in their thesis research, but whose research findings already, in the judgment of the faculty, are having great impact on the field. 2 students were selected for the award this year. Will Sean Igri and Kathleen Morrill please stand? So Sean's a third-year graduate student working with Dr. Quan Cheng, and he's already made really significant contributions to the field of amino acid sensing that have advanced our knowledge of how cells coordinate their behavior with environmental cues. He's identified important molecular interactions that enable cells to respond quickly to changes in nutrient level, and he's resolved 3 structural models to provide mechanistic information. He's published his work in 2 first author papers, and I understand he has at least 1 more in the pipeline. Dr. Cheng describes Sean as the most efficient student I've ever met, capable of paralleling multiple experiments with high efficiency. And that must be true because Sean was also engaged as an ambassador during our unusual admission and recruitment season. So he was not only paralleling multiple experiments, but paralleling multiple functions within our university community. Thanks, Sean. So Kathleen Morrill of NPR fame. I caught that. Kathleen developed and implemented new methods for analyzing genomic data from dogs. And this has enabled her work with Dr. Eleanor Carlson to complete some groundbreaking, to make some breakthroughs. Dogs, in addition to being adorable, are widely accepted as natural models for a number of human diseases. The project was the first to embrace full genomic diversity of dogs in an effort to increase our statistical power for mapping genes. The study made an immediate impact on the general public understanding of behavioral and physical variability in breeds. And this was published in Science in April. Kathleen clearly led the project, and that involved not only doing a lot of the experimental work and analysis, but coordinating the efforts of large groups of authors to bring a complex multi-year project to completion. Eleanor Carlson describes Kathleen as the rare combination of creativity, brilliance, interpersonal skill, and tenacity, and her respect for the work of others makes her a natural leader. Congratulations to both of you. We recognize each year a student or students who have contributed outstanding mentoring in the classroom or research setting, and the award this year goes to Kellyanne Alexander. Kellyanne's peers and junior colleagues describe her as selfless and dedicated to quality mentorship. She's always willing to help and challenges her peers to think outside their comfort zone. You keep that up, because that's a really good quality. Many students look to her as an inspiration and a role model for excellent science, genuine interest in the well-being of others, dedication to teaching and mentoring, and engaged community service. Kellyanne has also done quite a lot here as a student leader, and we're really grateful for that work and the great science that she's done and the mentoring. Thank you. Each year, some of our students work behind the scenes to serve the community in many different ways. And this year, we'd like to recognize the gift of time, talent, and effort given by Michelle Mosqueda and Xiao Crystal Shan. Both Michelle and Crystal are both elected GSBC Career Development Co-Chairs and have continued their work as leaders for the Life After the PhD Committee, encouraging members of our community to apply for the GSBS Career Development Award. The Life After the PhD, as many students know, has been really effective in encouraging our students to expand their professional networks, to identify career opportunities, and to enhance their skill sets for their future career paths. Michelle and Crystal, thanks for your ongoing contributions. This is the second year that we will confer the Student Jedi Award, and Jedi is an acronym for Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. This award recognizes demonstrated record of excellence and achievement in promoting and enhancing Jedi in the GSBS community over the academic year. And this year, the award goes to Sarah Cleveland and Judy Huang. Sarah and Judy are co-chairs of the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion branch of the GSBC, and they've been very active in the diversity interest group. They each received several individual and co-nominations, highlighting their many contributions and their strong commitment to enhancing diversity, equity, and inclusion here at UMass Chan. I'll say a few unique words about each. Sarah's nominators highlighted her work particularly enhancing the first-year student experience in the Morningside Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences. She works to make sure that students have the support they need and to create a culture of belonging, not only within the graduate school, but also broadly among all schools in UMass Chan. Sarah's been an active member of the diversity interest group and the very impactful activities that group puts forward. Sarah has also been an ambassador for the Morningside Graduate School of Biomedical Sciences, participating in events with partner training programs at undergraduate institutions with underrepresented minority populations. She's been an organizer of the Sac-Dig Diversity Coffee Hour during recruitment weekends, which is a big draw and helps us with our recruiting efforts. Judy devotes her efforts to new student recruitment, student government, leading and guiding several diversity-focused groups on campus. She's increased the visibility of the diversity interest group events and has increased the number of attendees at these high-impact events. Judy advocates for inclusive actions and policies, and she gives generously of her time and is seen by many as a mentor in navigating the challenges of graduate school. Judy, Sarah, thank you for what you bring to the community. All right, and at this time, I would like to recognize all nominees. So please take a look at all of our talented students who are nominated by their peers and faculty for awards. And if you see your name, stand up. Thank you. Congratulations to all of our graduates, some of whom are here, some of whom we'll see Sunday, and some who are already on their way to the next big thing. So I would like to offer some words to honor our graduates and all our honorees today, and to send you into your future careers in life with advice and encouragement. You have distinguished yourself by the quality and impact of your scientific work, by your character, your leadership, and the extent to which you have enhanced this community. I'm grateful for what you've brought to us and eager to see what you will accomplish over the next years. I was reading through your dissertation titles, and they speak to the breadth and the significance of the work that you've done. You've made discoveries that bring new understanding to fundamental biology and to human disease. You've developed new tools that enhance investigation, diagnosis, and treatment. And you've synthesized new insights that make treatment and care more effective, accessible, and equitable. You are addressing the big questions, and for the third time today, I will tell you that the world needs you. I think that we've always needed scientists, and we always will, not only for the innovations in technology and medicine that improve lives, but for our ability to think critically, challenge ideas, make evidence-based decisions, and solve difficult problems. And it does feel like, in this moment, we need you more than ever. But paradoxically, doesn't it also feel like, in this moment, we're not really trusted? A recent study by the Pew Foundation tells us that it feels this way because it actually is this way. So last year, I was quoting a 2020 Pew study that showed that public trust in science was at an all-time high, especially in the biomedical sciences. The trust that scientists will do what is in the interest of society. Now, sadly, the more recent survey that was conducted in November and December tells us that trust in science has dropped to below pre-pandemic levels. And while there are disparities based on affiliation, socioeconomic status, educational attainment, and ethnic identity, trust is down among all groups surveyed from where it was just 2 years ago. Now, we could take heart in the study's other findings that general mistrust is high and that scientists fare better than journalists, elected officials, teachers, and even the military. But I don't think we should be comforted by being the least mistrusted among the mistrusted. We know that low trust has a high cost, namely disinvestment and disengagement from public goods, like education, public safety, public space, and quite possibly research funding. While we have always enjoyed robust bipartisan support, we should not assume that this will always be the case. Why mistrust is high and what we should do about it will be the subject of many doctoral dissertations in the next years in social science, political science, media studies, and history. The first question seems to have some obvious answers. There's no shortage of bad actors who sow misinformation and mistrust for economic and political gain. And we should hold them accountable and work to neutralize their impact. But I've learned that there's a little bit more to addressing this problem than simply calling these people out. And the second question, what to do about it, is harder to answer. But what we know might actually be unsatisfying and difficult for us to understand as scientists. Organizational psychologist Adam Grant, who has a very positive view of science and scientists, devotes a chapter of his recent book, Think Again, to exploring the social science scholarship that clearly demonstrates that facts alone are not effective at changing minds. What does seem to be effective is approaching mistrust with curiosity rather than judgment about the underlying causes, compassion and understanding of where people are, and the humility about the relative advantage and privilege conferred by our educational attainment. This is relationship work, and it's largely individual. But we can commit to doing some form of this collectively. It's going to take time, and it's going to be rife with frustration and despair. But we need to do it. So we begin with curiosity, and this is something that we're very good at as scientists. And I encourage you to apply your curiosity broadly, even to questions that may not appear to be scientific in nature. One of the many highlights in this year of highlights was the opportunity to hear and meet with the journalist Harriet Washington, whose book Medical Apartheid was a campus read during Black History Month. In this book, she recounts stories, some familiar but most not, of groundbreaking medical interventions achieved through exploitation of African Americans, including but not limited to enslaved peoples. There are many examples throughout modern history of similar abuses of other vulnerable populations. She recounts incidents in which the drive toward scientific truth stopped short when it ran up against deeply held beliefs about racial supremacy and inferiority, and about when scientific arguments have been misused to uphold such beliefs. The consequences of this historical record, she argues, is a well-earned mistrust of medical science in the Black community, and she draws a direct line between this earned mistrust and the disparities in healthcare outcomes that we are now so aware. So examining our own history and interrogating the accuracy of our stories is an essential part of building public trust. You know, we have a familiar story about the triumph of science in the eradication of smallpox through vaccination, which every freshman biology student knows began when Edward Jenner introduced the first vaccine in 1796. And this continued through a World Health Organization global vaccine campaign from 1952 to 1972. This happened in the conscious lifetime of many in this room, including me. This is something I remember, and this is something that people my age remember. People were vaccinated against smallpox, and then they weren't because the virus was gone. The disease was gone. Now, our story also tells how before Jenner's vaccine, none other than General George Washington mandated the high-risk practice of inoculation against smallpox through controlled exposure. This proved to be very effective in halting the devastation that was highly contagious and often lethal virus was causing in the troops during the Revolutionary War. But I learned a new part of the story this year, and that is about the vaccine raids of the early 1900s, which targeted immigrant populations in New York and Boston and African American communities in several areas throughout the country. Government agents and police invaded the homes of people and vaccinated them by force and through threat of death. The motive behind these brutal raids was to prevent the spread of disease. And while the vaccines of the time were not without risk, the benefit was very clear. But the problem, however, was that the backdrop of these and other medical science and public health efforts was a social order where human value was stratified sharply by economics, race, ethnicity, capability, and legal status, and where the risks and benefits were segregated among very different populations. Now, what surprised me even more than hearing the story was that while this was new information for me, a very educated scientist, and it was probably new information for many of you, it is not new information to the people in the anti-vaccination movement. It's part of the lens through which they view science and public health. And while many of the beliefs that fuel that movement are based on ignorance, misinformation, and outright lies perpetuated by those who prey upon fear and confusion, we must acknowledge that there are some facts and truths that are foundational to these beliefs. So it was for me very humbling and sobering to realize the extent to which our mythology and our stories are incomplete, and how our ignorance of this history distorts the way that we see ourselves and those who mistrust us. And as imperfect as we are, we have made progress. Science is more rigorous, our institutions and processes are more robust, and our products are safer. We have IRBs, safety protocols, and conflict of interest training. Yay! And we don't implement mandates through violence. We've broadened our collective vision to include an obligation to identify disparities and put our intellectual, organizational, and financial resources toward bridging them. We're well positioned to begin to close the gap in trust. Trust is a privilege and it must be earned. However, recently I've started to consider the idea that actually the ability to trust is also a privilege. We trust science every day, not just in our work, but also for our health and safety, right? We mask up, even when it's uncomfortable and inconvenient, because we trust the science that shows that masking is effective. And we lined up for the COVID vaccine and while it was still under emergency use authorization, and some of you, I know, even participated as subjects in the clinical trials. We didn't do the studies ourselves or make the vaccines or evaluate the raw data or reproduce the experiments. We trusted the process, and we trusted that the primary motives of the scientists who were doing these studies and developing these treatments was the betterment of health and not simply their own personal gain. And your trust doesn't just apply to science, you also entrusted us here at this institution with overseeing your development as scientists and scholars. You trust in the value of the credential and training, which you've invested your time and energy. And I know it wasn't easy, and it was often harder than it had to be, with unnecessary friction and unclear rules, and sometimes incivility that occurs when humans are stressed. But your presence here and your participation on Sunday demonstrates that you successfully navigated your way through difficulties and trusted in the reward of the outcome. And by this trust in science and in us, you've become an integral part of a very privileged community and identity group: scientists, scholars, and PhDs. So I'm going to suggest that our trust in science is at least some institutions, is a result not only of our ability to understand facts and navigate complex systems and figure out how things work, but it is also in part influenced by our sense of belonging to this culture. And that by and large, science and higher education have worked for you. And I know that as graduate students, we get very used to thinking of ourselves as being on the losing side of a power imbalance. And however true that might be in your experience and on graduate school campuses across the country, I can assure you that the rest of the world does not see you as powerless. And as you move through your career and your life, the benefits and advantages of your education will become more apparent to you as well. So I hope that you can learn to think differently, understand what power and privilege you do have, claim it, and use it justly. So let's prepare ourselves for the long and surely frustrating struggle of enhancing trust in science again, with curiosity, compassion, and humility. And rather just urging others to just trust science, commit yourselves to being just, trustworthy scientists. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Dean, for those wonderful words. So now it's my pleasure to close the ceremonies and to invite you all to join us for some socialization and some refreshments up in the atrium outside the cube. So thank you all, and congratulations again to all our graduates and awardees.